You're listening to the Daily Mishnah Podcast with Benedict.
So we're in the tractate of Kiddushin. We're in the second chapter. We've been talking about conditionality. So what happens if someone makes a condition and it's not fulfilled? And we're running parallel to the tractate of Gittin, the tractate of divorce. And in the tractate of divorce, we learned, by the way, not only about conditionality, but about agency. You can give a divorce via an agent. And okay, we can get married via an agent. And now we're going to try and combine everything together. Someone says to his agent, go out and betroth to me such and such a person, such and such a woman, in such and such a place. So he gives the agent an instruction that it seems to be a conditional instruction. And the Mishnah goes on. And he goes and he betroths her elsewhere. He doesn't fulfill his agency. Einam Kudeshet, she's not betrothed. It doesn't work. The agent has to go within the remit. And in fact, we learn a lot of the laws of agency out of these tractates of Kiddushin and Gittin. Now, of course, the instruction doesn't have to make clear that there's a condition. Let's say he says to her, Seva Kadeshli Misha Plonit. So he says, go out and betroth me, such and such a woman. Hooray, he be Makom Ploni. Behold, she is in such and such a place. In other words, he gives her a geographical estimation of where she is. But he doesn't instruct the agent to go out and betroth her in that place. And he betroths her elsewhere. She's mukudeshet, it works. Everything works. So the power of the agency depends on the instructions given to the agent. What about conditions which are broken? A condition between the woman and the man. And someone betroths a woman on the condition that she was under no vows. And we can see, by the way, why this might have been important in a marriage. Maybe she swears that she won't eat meat, or she won't drink wine, or she won't cook for her potential father-in-law's family. There might be many ways, and we learned this in the tractate of Ketubot. There might be many, many ways in which the presence of vows could make a marriage very, very difficult. So he might have given her Kiddushin on condition that she had no vows. And then after they get married, let's not say after they get married. And then it's found that she has vows. So vows are found on her. We're not quite sure at this point when these are found. But the halacha is einam kudeshet, she's not betrothed. And we learned at the beginning of the chapter that transparency is actually critical to the betrothal process. If there isn't mutual transparency on both sides, the betrothal doesn't work. So we can see if she's found to have deceived him, the betrothal doesn't work. And this Mishnah, by the way, is a carbon copy of a Mishnah in Ketubot. So we have learned this Mishnah in the 7th chapter of Ketubot. And of course, the Mishnah in Ketubot is really interested in what is happening if they are already married and she's found to have vows. And that's essentially the next topic in the Mishnah. Knasa stam. So he married her without conditions. So it sounds like the betrothal is fine. He didn't make a condition on the betrothal. So the betrothal is valid. There were no conditions. But she was found to have that. Teitse shelo ketubah. She can be divorced without a ketubah. So the Mishnah is saying it's not as if they're not married. They are married. In the first situation, einam kudeshet. In the first situation, she was not betrothed. If you like, it's a false premise. She's not betrothed. She doesn't need a get. Second situation, there were no conditions, so she's validly married. But it comes out afterwards that she has vows. Teitse shelo ketubah. She could be divorced without her ketubah. This is not an instruction to divorce her without her ketubah, or not necessarily. I would think. I mean, maybe there's some. I don't think the halacha is that he has to divorce her. I mean, if he had vowed not to maintain her, at this point he'd have to divorce her. That's an interesting question. But she can be divorced without her ketubah, as if it's an attack on family. It could be an attack on family life. And it's the same. If he betrothed her on condition she had no defects, what kind of defect? Well, this must be some physical defect that's not outwardly visible. And the parallel Mishnah in Ketubot, by the way, talks about whether there's a bathhouse in town or whether there isn't, and whether he should have known or should not have known about it. So the assumption in Kiddushin is he doesn't know. He doesn't know. He betrothed on condition she had no defects, and she has some physical defect. And by the way, the same can apply the other way around, that there are certain kinds of defects in men which even after Kiddushin, perhaps even after marriage, a woman can perhaps say, look, I just can't stand this. Or Rabbi Meir takes the view in Ketubot that she can say, look, I agreed to marry him without knowing he was a tanner, but now I'm living with the guy and I realize I just cannot take it. So this could apply to men as well. But in the case, it's a parallel case. If he betrothed her on condition she had no defects, and she does, Eina Mukudeshet, she's not Mukudeshet. The Kiddushin don't hold. She's not married at all. He married her without making additions. And she's found to have defects, just as if she's found to have vows. She can be divorced without a ketubah. And the Mishnah ends exactly as it does in Ketubot. Shekol hamumin haposlin bakonim poslin ba'nashim. Because all defects which disqualify priests all disqualify women. Really interesting that the Mishnah is going to parallelize kind of the sanctity of marriage to the sanctity of the temple. Just as it does, by the way, the land of Israel, the relationship of the Jewish people in the land of Israel to the relationship of a man and wife, and there is a verse which we looked at before in Vayikra. There is a whole list of blemishes in Vayikra which actually invalidate a priest from service. He's blind, he's lame, he's got a flat nose, he's got something extra, he's got a broken foot, he's broken-handed or crook-backed or dwarf. He's got blemish in his eye, he's got scurvy, he's got scabbed, he doesn't have proper testes. So there's a list of blemishes which disqualify a priest from serving in the Beit Mikdash. And these seem to be the same ones which, if they're not disclosed at the betrothal point, could render a wife liable to be divorced without her ketubah.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the Daily Mishnah Podcast with Benedict.